This is the nation's capital. But to be honest, that identity can be this city's biggest crutch at times. You gotta look past all the monuments, all the sightseeing, to find a culture that's unmatched, and a people that are like no other. And the DNA of the city has formed a basketball culture in its metro area that's truly special. It's become a mecca for elite and underrated players alike. It's like clockwork. And that's why you see the highest concentration of NBA players in the country from DC. A top 3 rate of D1 recruitment. Annual top 25 teams. But at the same time, it isn't recognized with that same prestige as some other areas. From Benning Road to past the Beltway, this is truly a fraternity and a sorority of hoopers. And we're absolutely determined to discover what makes it such a hotbed. If you've ever lived in the DMV, you'll agree that it has a unique feel. You probably feel like you know everybody in the city. The metro area is just so condensed, and the basketball scene is just as concentrated. And that's one huge part of the success of the area. Hoopers grow up in the same neighborhoods, go to the same trainers, play on the same youth teams, more than any other city. And on one high school team, you'll catch a few guys from all over the area. And this whole integrated dynamic, it shapes a brotherhood. Guys feel like the whole area is one, not just a collection of teams and players. And as a result, this fraternity empowers the whole hooping scene. It gives you a sense of having something behind you. Plus, it just breeds competition. When the younger guys see the whole scene succeeding, it's an inspiration, but also a vehicle to push them even harder.
Probably the biggest difference is just that over time, the people from this area that are playing basketball and are setting the trends have done so well. They just want to compete. And then once you start to see your peers reaching certain levels of success in terms of, oh, he's a McDonald's All-American? Oh, he's a All-Met player or something like that. You're like, well, I've been in the gym, I'm with him every day.
People will argue. I know everyone thinks the GOAT is LeBron, but you call it 1A, 1B, whatever you want. The next guy is Kevin Durant. And those guys have had, over the years, an ability to watch these guys who've played in the league, guys who've played in the area, have so much success at the highest level of basketball that they aspire to be that. So they're willing to put that work in to continue to grow and be that.
This sets a bar for those younger guys. And with a few exceptions, guys like seeing each other making it out. That's the beauty of it. But with so many guys trying to make it, overwhelming isn't even the word. If you want it, you're gonna have to go get it. And that's what makes every single minute of DMV hoops so passionate.
The challenges of coaching night in and night out in our league, you know, forget the national schedule that we play or some of the other teams in our league play. Like, you know, if you don't win your conference title, like your season is a disappointment.
The WCAC. For years now, the Washington Catholic Athletic Conference has been known as one of the best, if not the best high school conference in the world.
I always wanted to, be a great player at the WCAC. There's no nights off. Everybody's giving you your best shot.
With 4 to 5 powerhouses each year, all within 17 miles of the capital, every single night is a battle.
Coming into the WCAC, you gotta be focused every night. It's games Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturdays, so you're gonna get like one day of rest. And 1 week you might have St. John's, then DeMatha, and then PBI. I know last year we played St. John's, DeMatha, PBI, O'Connell, all back to back. So in the WCAC, you just gotta come out and be focused and be prepared every game.
You gotta come ready to compete every day. Be ready to do the little things takes for your team to get the dub. You gotta hustle, get 50-50 balls, rebound, box out.
A great example of WCAC prominence is DeMatha Catholic High School, likely the best known of these powerhouses, on a national level at least.
We've won, our basketball program has won 40 Catholic League championships. Some of the players, you can go back, we've had dozens of NBA players. Danny Ferry, Adrian Branch, Adrian Dantley, on into Quinn Cook, and James Robinson, and Jeremy Grant, and Jaron Grant, and Victor Oladipo, and Markel Fultz.
And as you can tell, the WCAC is basically a college league. In the 2018 tournament, there were 13 WCAC guys hooping, and that number only grows each year.
One of the reasons why our league is so popular is because we truly feel like we're preparing our kids for college. Guys that are coming from the WCAC, our guys are used to that daily grind. They're used to competing against and competing with other very high-level players. So when they get to college, that learning curve to go with, I have to learn how to play with other good players. I've already done that.
And especially WCAC, you praise me for the ACC. Playing against some of the same guys.
WCAC is just the best conference in the country.
And man, the WCAC environment, it's like no other. And before you get ahead of yourself here, this right here was just the JV game. The same stage that NBA players have played on before they get that rite of passage to the real varsity bump. So when the real stage is set, the lights are brighter than ever, and it's fun to watch night in and night out. Can't tell me this doesn't resemble a college game. The energy, the crowd, the stage. It's like a mini version of something you would see in the ACC or the Big Ten. So it's no wonder why these players are so ready to step into their college teams and make a difference so early. And these are high-level matchups at every position. Even in the summer, dudes just continue to compete. So at the end of the day, there's really no debate. Everyone knows the status of the league.
So you don't see just one team in this league being stockpiled with players. And I think a part of that is, one, people want to play in this league because it is the best in the country.
But what makes the WCAC such a powerful conference? Why is it just consistently producing high-level players? I mean, I guess we can start with an obvious reason.
First and foremost, you can't be a talented team without talented players. The pool of athletes and basketball players here in the DMV, DC, Maryland, and Virginia, it is tremendous.
DMV is like, we're one of the hotbeds, if not the hotbed in the country for talent.
The best basketball players are in the PG County area.
I think that Prince George's County basketball is the best in the nation per capita. In my mind, there's no other county in the nation that can surpass the talent pool that we have. So you can go ahead and all the private schools can recruit and get the top picks and top kids, and there's still enough talent to go around without question.
When you have, high major players going to schools that, aren't ranked in the All-Met top 25. And I just think that the talent pool is spread so wide that that's just different.
And this talent starts early too.
We have these older guys that we look up to, and like I said, the bar is set. These younger guys come in and they have people to look up to. They have role models who come back around the area here.
For most hoopers in the DC area, they grow up on hoops. They're not forced into it, but it's something that just happens. Everywhere you go, you'll see youngins shooting at halftime, working out. And it's one of the reasons why these players get so good so early. Even in middle school, leagues like the PYBL take top talent and develop them, simply by matching them with other top young hoopers around the city. And these games are impressive too. These guys are ready for the next level. But why do these Catholic schools continue to dominate this recruitment?
Well, I think you can attribute a lot of things to the change in our community. The negative or maybe the dirty side of it is, the crack epidemic that came through. It made our streets less safe. I could grab my basketball, leave the house on Saturday morning at 8 o'clock and return at 8:30 at night. You don't have many communities where you can do that, and for the parents not to be worried, or even if young kids are allowed to do that anymore. And the drug epidemic in this area and the gun violence that comes along with that definitely changed. So that kind of pushed the game indoors.
Plus, you don't see kids able to play outside like they used to be able to. That court will be filled up by this time on a Saturday, you know what I mean? But you have kids that come, they play here every once in a while, but they're nervous because they have so many other things that's spilling onto the court.
I mean, again, if you want to find a silver lining in it. So instead of kids just out on the court playing somewhere, there's no adults out there coaching you and telling you to do this and do that. You're just playing basketball, having fun with your friends. Well, when it pushed the game indoors into the rec centers and the community centers and things like that, you did have adult supervision. And fortunately enough for some of these guys, you had adult supervision that wanted to see these guys because you saw something in a young man or a young lady. You were like, hey, well, I'm going to work with this kid.
And there it is. It may be a silver lining, but it's the commencement of young hoopers naturally receiving more coaching, which at the end of the day has to be a positive.
Systems were put in place where these players are training nonstop. When I was growing up, I grew up in like the 90s, it wasn't a lot of trainers. And if you go back before that, it wasn't a lot of trainers. You just had a lot of players playing outside.
And also it's an affluent area. The industry here is the government, so a lot of people with disposable incomes, a lot of two-parent households, so these parents can go out and hire personal trainers or have the money to have their children travel. I think that's a huge part of the equation too, starting at a young age.
You got kids that are 9, 10 years old that already has training. I think the parents are really good at finding trainers and basketball programs, not just takeover, but basketball programs where their sons and daughters can excel. Two things: parent, you got your parents in here, so you see you got support at an early age. The other thing is you don't start those bad habits that I have to correct later if I get a kid later. A lot of bad habits as far as footwork and as far as just mentally how they approach working out. If I get them early, I nip that in the bud so we don't have to deal with it later. Coaches don't have to deal with it later.
4-year-old, he's already playing in different leagues. He had 22 points already one time. He can dribble with 2 basketballs.
And it's not just trainers either. You ask any coach around the area, they'll all tell you the same thing.
I think that we have tremendous coaches. I think the coaches at the high school level and at the grassroots level are phenomenal.
What makes our league so good is that the kids and the teams, even the ones who may be in the bottom half, are so well prepared by their coaches that night in and night out, you got to come to play.
95% of the guys that do this are doing it for the right reason. You got a few bad apples, which in any walk of life you do, but I think for the most part, everybody's doing this for the right reason.
I think if you go back to when AAU started becoming big and you look at, DC Assault and Curtis Malone and the Blue Devils, with Rob Jackson and now most recently with Keith Stevens and Team Takeover, and there's a lot of other AAU programs. I think we have excellent AAU programs and excellent high school programs, and a lot of times the programs are working together. So I think the kids are getting a lot of excellent coaching at lower levels.
All right, so you have this talent pool, this early development.
It used to be that the best players were in DC. Those players that were in DC began to get recruited to these Catholic high schools.
And I also think, the influx of social media and just the nature of basketball right now, I think a lot of parents want to send their kids to private school to get that exposure.
And regardless of the field, money opens doors. Period.
I think one of the things that has changed basketball a little bit is the parents are a little more, a little wealthier now.
Demographics change, the socioeconomic patterns change. different types of kids began coming to DeMatha and able to afford DeMatha.
From an employment standpoint, once Obama got in office, that's around when we started. And the resurgence of the economy, the stimulation of the economy, created jobs in the government.
I think it's for various reasons. First of all, there's more private schools. I think that's the first reason. Second of all, the private schools have more money. Third of all, it's a very affluent county, so you have parents that can spend a few $1,000s to invest in a private school.
On paper, the best basketball players from this area have come from like the suburbs. Super suburbs, like in these pockets of like, there's no buses, there's no trains, nothing like that. So this environment was created with these upper middle class, well-to-do, like black parents. Like, so for example, Prince George's County is by far the richest black county in America. And they're not riding the train, they're not hanging out at the train station, they're not hanging out on the block. There's nothing to do but to get involved in something, whether it's the church, they have one of the biggest churches in the area in these places, or sports. When you see these kids at a very early age, they have their parents involved. So if they're playing basketball, the first thing you notice is that they're traveling the country, right? At a very young age. They have elite training at a very young age. But now you're coming into the city and you're dealing with these kids who are the exact opposite, just of natural raw talent.
But under the shadow of these private schools is inner city DC. The schools may not get the same attention, but statistically, the district has the highest concentration of NBA players per capita, and that's something that just can't be ignored.
To my knowledge, the DC state championships, the public schools have more than the Catholic schools. All the talent is in DC. It's a lot of talent in DC. Don't get me wrong, it's a lot of Maryland, Virginia kids, but a lot of kids are in DC to start middle schools and things like that. They never stay because they don't want to go to the public school.
I think that speaks for itself. DC's talent is deep. And even though a ton bypass their local DCPS or charter schools for private schools, DCIAA games have a different type of energy. And that's fed by pure talent and excitement.
I think that the private schools do a good job of making sure that the publicity that these kids get is there. In comparison to those private schools, it's kind of tough to say because they recruit from all over the world, and we don't even get to recruit. We don't even get to recruit.
And that's what drives a lot of these players. They know they got talent, but they're also realistic and recognize that it'll be more difficult to showcase it. So every game has to be with energy and intensity. And they showcase those skills nightly. And when these games get lit, they're a different level. And there's really no better example of a public school taking advantage of their opportunities and talent than Woodrow Wilson High School in Northwest Washington.
When I first took over, I had a 5-year plan. And I'm on my 5th year now. And some of those plans and goals were to win the DCIAA championship, which hadn't been done since 1977. And we won our first DCIAA championship. And then we were able to repeat as DCIAA championships and play for a state championship, which we also won.
All these different things were happening, and it was almost like serendipitous, where it all came together. Nobody really saw them coming. So they kind of snuck up in there, and then by the time we built that momentum, it was almost too late.
It just shows that when you put in the work, no matter where you are, like if you can play, they'll find you.
But no matter where you play in the winter, the summer is a completely different season. AAU comes, and man, it's a different animal. It's pretty much a fair playing field at this point.
And then now we got more AU teams, and the AU circuit has blown up and has went into a whole nother realm, which is almost like a corporation in itself.
But what's interesting is that basketball in the DMV isn't about flash or media attention. You look at AAU teams like Team Takeover or DC Premier, who won the EYBL and Under Armour Association, respectively. Neither were followed around by big media outlets for mixtapes. Neither had McDonald's All-American. As a matter of fact, Premier's championship squad didn't even have any first or second team selections, but they do send kids to colleges. And this is a trend that just seems to repeat itself every year.
AAU at times has gotten a bad rap that they roll the ball out and it's a group of all-stars. But you look at a group like Takeover and the tremendous job they've done with their teams, and you go watch their practices. Their practices are run like high schools.
And Coach Turner isn't lying. Takeover runs like a college program, from their coaching and practices to media to the connections they have.
I think one of the reasons that Coach Takeover is so special right now is because of the group of kids that we have, and also the passion that the coaches have that put into the program. And then lastly, the parents believing in what we do and wanting their son to be a part of that.
AAU is probably one of the best things that happen in basketball because you get to travel, see the world. Kids get to play against competition that they don't see in their local area. You have teams like Team Takeover that help provide a way to get kids exposure to go to college, and they've been doing this for years.
But it isn't just Takeover, not even close. There are teams all around the city that give exposure to guys. And all these teams provide players with a unique opportunity to get outside the DMV, to travel, to play against national competition, and in front of seemingly endless coaches. Get experiences they wouldn't get anywhere else. And while some may give young hoopers from PG the rep that they're prototypical suburban hoopers, travel ball exposes them to and normalizes the dynamic of playing against every type of hooper from a young age.
Although they come from these suburban places, they've traveled the country. They played against the worst kids from Texas, from New Orleans, from Atlanta, from New York, from all these different places. They've already played against rough kids. They're not afraid of a fight because it's institutionalized at such an early age. They don't even think about that type of stuff of like, I should be scared of him. It's like, oh, he's just like me.
So that's the entire spring and summer. School teams take up the fall and winter. So there's really no break.
We talked a little bit off camera about there was no vacations. Vacations were going to AU tournaments in Florida, going to, Vegas for tournaments. That was our vacation. I didn't take a vacation until I was probably in my second or third year professionally.
For me, I think the biggest thing is the investment that the parents put in.
It's a heck of a commitment. It really is. However, it's something that the kids love. They love to play. So it's a commitment, but they love to play.
It's really a way of life. It's something that you have to eat, breathe, and sleep if you want to be the best because there's so many great players here.
But that year-round nature of elite hoops in the area is what makes the DMV so fertile for basketball-related business. Full-time opportunities for people in every field, especially media.
Kind of the media aspect of high school basketball is pretty crazy. When I started with Capital Hoops 10 years ago, there was no one else in the media space. There was the Washington Post, like I had mentioned before, and there were no other cameras at these games. And then, slowly over the years, new people would kind of trickle in, people would trickle out, but it's just so fertile, the media right now. I mean, every game, you go to some of these big WCAC games, there'll be 20, 25 cameras. This day with social media, everyone has their camera phone, everyone's making a mixtape of this guy, a mixtape of that guy, and I think kind of the combination of the way technology has kind of spread in addition to the way basketball has spread, it's kind of a perfect combination of where we're currently at right now.
And when there's such a consistent stream of good basketball, people want to know what's going on. People are intrigued. And that opens up an entire new market. But what it also does is open up teams that aren't those Catholic schools to exposure in the media.
I think times have changed. There was a time that high majors, Division I kids would go to school in Prince George's County public schools, and that's virtually unheard of now. I think most of your mid to high major players will go to private schools, but we definitely still have Division I players, some very good Division II and Division III players that come through the public school.
You see guys from PG and Montgomery County public schools, as well as smaller private schools, getting covered night in and night out. People take interest in them on a larger scale. And when you give those guys the recognition they deserve, it just lifts the entire area. Every game becomes bigger. Every league gains respect. And that competition just drives players to be better. So if you're not convinced by now, I don't know what to say. I don't think we'll ever uncover that full recipe for what makes the area so special. But we're gonna keep looking. And maybe that will help us lift up the area even more. Or bring that culture to other areas, nationally and even globally. But regardless, there's something extraordinary being cooked up here. There has been for decades upon decades. And it's hard to see it going anywhere other than up from here.
Shit, I'd rather get up on the mic and end this shit, cause they be talking about my ceiling. Then they rate my expectation, y'all ain't even in it. I'm a menace with this ish. My story should go for millies. Plot deeper than the ocean, my story should go for billies. Feeling like y'all really don't feel me, I gotta feel it out. For guys to be the norm, so I'm trying to see what they're real about. Come to find out that goddamn it, I'm the realest out. Rappers in my soul, we give a fuck about what y'all feel about. These ain't no more rappers, they some imitators. Saying what they hear through them speakers, ain't no originators. Then that's that self-hate for you, can't even trust what you thinking. That's why your wallets be sinking deeper and deeper in your pockets. I'm trying to get that guala because I feed these niggas concentrate up. I always been the long shot, Deshaun Watson with the way I be running through all my options.